Blessing and love, everyone. It's your girl, Zia the Begum, back again with another episode. Today is extra special because I've got my first guest with me. Scientist Bay, give her a round of applause. Y'all already know whenever she's in the building, it's about to be educational and unfiltered. Now, last time I talked about marriage, love, and protection, the importance of having both the nikah and legal marriage. But today, we're shifting gears. We're going to get into love, attraction, and culture, and how, for me, being biracial has shaped my experiences in navigating intentional connections. As a biracial woman, I've connected with men from different cultures: Pakistani, Indian, Arab, and African American men. And honestly, I've learned that regardless of ethnicity, if someone's a good person, the vibe is right, and they're attractive, you can definitely catch feelings. Now, my first question to Scientist Bay: when you think about your own experiences, how do you feel culture and identity play a role in attraction and relationships?
Um, Happy to be on here. Thank you for the question. I do think that culture and identity can play a huge role when it comes to attraction and relationships. In my own personal experiences, being a dark-skinned Black woman on the curvier side, um, a lot of what I can get is that hypersexualization of one, having a body, two, being perceived that Black women are supposed to act a certain way, kind of be down for whatever. I get a lot of the different, fetishization of Black women, and I feel like that can affect the way that I have been approached, um, where I've been approached by men who will say, "Oh, I've always wanted to be with a Black woman," as if we're some sort of bucket list item to check off and not an actual person. And when I ask them, why have you always wanted to be with a Black woman, or for the people that are non-black and will say black women are my type, whenever I ask why, it's never about personality, it's never about belief systems, it's always about their body and what ideas they have that black women fit into sexually. Like I've had somebody approach me and be like, "Oh, would you like to be my baby mama?" No mention of a relationship, no mention of, courting, trying to get to know me. Just, you're black, you're relegated to the baby mama category, and you should pick me. And it's been a mess. It's been a mess in that sense, but I do notice it in the way that I have been approached as either some sort of bucket list item or somebody that's just supposed to be this hypersexual being and not, me as a person.
Dang, that is unfortunate to hear. Boo,
Boo, yeah,
you
boo is
know,
correct.
boo made to be feel like someone's bucket list. Like that is horrible. And I think that kind of connects to my next point in a way. For me, as I've gotten older, my preferences have leaned more toward black men, even though not to say black men don't fetishize black women as well and don't have that kind of same mindset towards black women. Some do, some don't. But, for me, one big reason that I've leaned more towards black men is the cultural understanding. Like, I don't have to explain why I wear a bonnet to bed or sleep on satin sheets. They just get it. And there's something comforting in knowing you don't have to break down your culture to be seen. So, my follow up question, Scientist Bay, do you think cultural understanding matters more than shared ethnicity? Like, is it about being the same race or about understanding each other's everyday life?
I do think that cultural understanding can play a part in dating. There's a sense of security and comfort that comes from being with someone that shares, a cultural understanding. Um, you don't have to reduce yourself, you know? There's cultural nuances, sayings, things that just, you know, are understood without having to be said, and that can bring at least a sense of comfort to me with dating Black men, across the diaspora. There has been a comfort in having a cultural understanding, understanding what it's like to be Black in America, understanding, Black culture across the diaspora. Like there's more of a comfort in that. And that goes into, being seen as a whole person and not a caricature. And what I was saying before with being fetishized or hypersexualized, there will be non-Black men that have approached me that are in love with the idea or stereotypes of Black women. But when it came down to it, would not stand up for the issues that truly matter, wouldn't call out anti-Blackness, wouldn't call out racism or misogyny or anything like that. They just want to be with Black women because it's an accessory or they're trying to set themselves apart from everybody else. And so I do think it does play a role with, cultural understanding mattering. That isn't to say that you can't meet somebody outside of your culture who wouldn't, who would actually take the time to sit down, get to learn and respect your culture, see you for you, and, be willing to show up and be an ally to call things out amongst their own family, friends, community that they deem problematic. Like there are people out there like that. And so, yeah, those are my thoughts on that. Like it is possible, outside to find somebody outside the community that values you for you and sees your culture as something worth celebrating and championing. But for me personally, I do think cultural understanding is important because, again, like you said, I'm wearing a bonnet now. So I'm wearing a bonnet right now. Like I don't want to, it is nice not to have to explain to somebody, wearing a bonnet or you know, different rituals or things that like Juneteenth and the celebrations and just
Right.
the beauty that is our culture, like, things that are understood without having to be said.
Period. And like, speaking about kind of like the diaspora, I must admit, now I won't hold you. I've got a thing for East Africans. Both the men and women are just beautiful, mashallah. Like, I see why Drake was rapping about East African women because the glow is undeniable. But beyond beauty, there are so many similarities to my Pakistani side, values, tradition, customs, that sense of also family and community. It feels familiar in a really good way. So I think that's also what has like attracted me to them. But don't get it twisted. Child, I do love me a tall, fine black country man from the South, okay? There is just something about that Southern charm, that mix of strength and hospitality that really speaks to me. Plus, with my mom being from the South and me spending the last few years down there, it feels like home in a different way. Now, we're going to get into some personal experiences, but I got to put a disclaimer, okay? Before I share, let me clear, let me be clear. These are my personal experiences. A few bad apples don't reflect the whole population. And I'm not here to generalize or bash anyone. I'm simply sharing what I've personally encountered. Okay, back to the episode. When it came to exploring compatibility with men who were East African or even mixed with East African and also African American, I noticed something that felt off. To me, it was like an insecurity around their blackness. You know me, Scientist Bay. I'm very secure and proud of my blackness, so it stood out. One brother actually said to me, I don't know how to talk to you. Should I talk to you like a Pakistani or like an African American? And to me, that was weird, you know? It felt like he thought Pakistanis deserve more respect than African Americans. That didn't sit right with me. Another story, a man who claimed to be part East African and African American, but honestly, I think he was cosplaying his identity. I think he's more African American than really East African. He didn't like how I was so connected to my African American side and would stereotype or talk down about African Americans. That was a red flag for me, and I refuse to sit in spaces where people diminish or stereotype my people. Now, this other experience with a West African man, the conversation took a different turn, but it was still troubling. He had asked me what skin color I wanted my children to be. He actually said he wanted his daughter to be light skinned and his son to be dark skinned because in his words, light skinned men, are gay. I told him straight up,
Mm.
whatever Allah blesses me with, that's what I want. Healthy, happy, righteous children. That's all that matters to me. It showed me how deeply colorism still runs in some communities and how I can't compromise on that kind of mindset. Growing up in the Midwest, I definitely saw a lot of black men preferring white women, and that's fine. Love is love. But as a black and Pakistani woman, it sometimes made me question how men viewed me. Like you had talked about, non black men fetishizing you and hypersexuality, because again, we see this more in non black communities. But for me, in my experience in the Midwest, you know, it was making me question, was I seen as black enough? Was I being exoticized or just overlooked? I say this because, for example, one experience there was a guy I was getting to know, but on his social media page, he would share a picture of white women. And from what I had known, he also talked to white women in the past. So it made me question things like, are you just fetishizing me? Like, I'm black enough to take home, but still quote unquote exotic. And, even I've had men tell me after, like, I've shared what my ethnicity is, like, oh, you're so beautiful because you're Pakistani. So what? So if I was full black, I would be ugly. Even another guy, I think you remember this story, and I had told you in real time, and I'm pretty sure I still have the receipts to this day. But, he was East African American, he was born and grew up here. And I guess he had some rivalry with Pakistanis, and he was like, oh, I can't wait to tell them, like, oh, I have this Pakistani beauty and brag that I have one of their women. Like, what? Like, ew. That's just
Yeah.
weird to me. And, like, why would you say that? But now, Scientist Bay, let me bring you in here because you've also lived in both the Midwest and the South. Do you feel like there's a difference in how you've been treated as a black woman, depending on the region? Like, have you noticed shifts in attitudes or respect or even the way men approach you? Men will be men, but have you seen a difference or not?
Um, that's a good question. I mean, as you said, men will be men, and that is very important to preface here. Um, on my experience, I would say, um, okay, so I have noticed a bit of a difference in the way that I am approached. So my experiences in the South. I would say I was approached a bit more intentionally. I spoke earlier about hypersexualization and the idea of the stereotypes that they have for Black women and how Black women are supposed to be. I didn't, in my experiences, mind you, so I didn't experience that as much in the South. I was approached with more intentionality and, people wanting to get to know me, for me, planning dates. I didn't have to question on the dates that I went on if, I'm paying for something or not. That isn't to say that I've never had anybody approach me with, strictly wanting to be friends with benefits or anything like that. Like, of course that happened, when I was in the South, but out of the people that I went on dates with, it was a bit more intentional versus, the Midwest. I briefly did a stint on like a dating app just to kind of see what it was like here. And that's where I got more of the comments of, do you want to be my baby mama? Like, here's why you should pick me. Or I like Black women for their bodies. I even had somebody suggest to me that I should pay for our first date. Um,
Boo.
yeah, I know. I
Tomato,
know.
tomato.
I know. Tomato, tomato, tomato. It was truly a wild time. That isn't to say that I haven't encountered people who have been unintentional. Sorry, my dog has joined, so if you hear him whining, it's because I'm sitting at a desk and he can't sit with me right now. But I have found some people here who have been intentional where I've never really had to question on if they wanted to get to know me for me. However, I would say an overwhelming majority of my experience here has either been with people trying to suggest friends with benefits, which I'm just not into, or being like, you are a Black woman, how dare you outside of the standards that I have set for, your demographic. And, when things haven't gone well up here, or I've rejected someone, I'll get called all types of, dark skin roach, called out of my name, be like, that's why I don't like Black women anyway. Or I will get when I have rejected people, well, I thought Black people and Black women were supposed to be nice, but, here you are and you are ruining that for me. And so it's just like, okay. Okay. So, I will say intentionality wise from the brief experience that I had in the South, it was a little bit better for me.
Yeah. Okay. Now, my next question I have to ask, do you have a type? Like, what's one thing that makes you go, whew, when you see it in a man?
I would say so. I thought about how to respond to this, and so I have a shallow response and a deeper response. Like just shallow, like looks wise, purely. Big and tall. I love that. Continue that. Dark skinned men. Love that. 10 out of 10. But on a deeper level, secureness in a man. And what I mean by that is someone that doesn't subscribe to like misogynistic standards of what a woman is or what a woman should be doing. Like, not in the gender roles, not insecure if, I've had in previous dating history, I've had um, someone that I was dating tell me that they hated my independence, they hated everything about that part of my personality, and that I should give up, what I was doing career-wise, academic-wise, to just, you know, stay at home and be more, subservient to them. And that is incredibly insecure. Um, to me, somebody that I look for, and it really makes you say like, "Woo," is somebody that not only supports you in what it is that you're doing, but genuinely tries to lift you up, is your biggest cheerleader, never once diminishes you or puts you down because they feel jealous of where you are in life. And I have had somebody tell me, like, oh, you think you're better than me because you're working on your master's degree. Like, no, but I'm not understanding why, you know, my degrees are a point of contention. And so, somebody is just secure and uplifts you and wants you to succeed and wants to see you succeed, help you succeed, all of that is what really, makes me say like, woo. But it's just being secure um in themselves and never once, diminishing you or putting you down.
I love that because for me in the courting process, I feel in the past I had to, not had to be, but was humble. And I feel like, a lot of people will try to humble you. But now, as I've grown older, like, okay, I'm not going to let you take me off a peg. I'm not going to be, I don't want to say cocky. And I mean, I'm still, I think, a very humble person, but yeah, I'm not going to let you take me down a peg. I know how I was raised and brought up. I know what I have to offer. I know who I am, what I have worked on, what I have accomplished, what I'm going to even further accomplish. And I feel like I should not have to settle. I should not be pushed into this box and be reprimanded for my standards, which is going to kind of lead me to my next question to ask you, but to kind of like expand more is that, for example, one of my requirements, and also a family requirement, but again, more so at the end of the day, my requirement because I'm the person who's marrying them, in my preference, I prefer someone who has at least a bachelor's. Now, me, I have my master's in pursuing also my doctorates, but if I can get someone from master's, that's great. If not, at least a bachelor's. But a lot of men on this courting process, I won't say a lot because I try to be very intentional and filter, and I'm not trying to come off as elitist because I have given, people who doesn't have the same kind of educational background as me a chance. But for one example, one person was so offended that I wanted someone with a bachelor's and had the audacity to ask me. No, I said actually, my preference is a master's, but I'm fine with a bachelor's. Had the audacity to hit back at me and say, well, do you have a master's? Yes, I actually do have a master's and I'm working towards my doctorate. Because why would I ask of something that I don't have? And so
Mhm,
that constant, I guess, again, trying to be knocked down a peg and try to humble
mhm,
me in this courting, process, trying to find the one to complete, my dean with. That's just an example. And
mhm,
also, I feel again about like my family background and setup, the importance of education on both sides and how hard my parents have worked to improve their lives and their children's life. And I feel like some don't understand that piece, like to humbly brag, like, wow, my parents actually did that. Like they got like 3 out of 4 kids who have a graduate degree. And based off of how they had came up and the hurdles they had or their families they had, like, wow, they really did that. And I would want someone who mirrors that same values and that importance. But that was just one example. Sorry, I got a little bit long-winded, but circling back,
Yeah, I think it's important to have these conversations.
yeah, I definitely agree. At the end of the day, like I said, even though I got my preferences, vibes matter, values matter, character matters. Yes, I've got my preferences, but again, what I really want is someone who, like you were talking about, who makes you feel seen, safe, and supported. My last question to you, Scientist Bay. If you could give one piece of advice to younger women navigating love and identity, what would it be?
Never shrink yourself for somebody that wouldn't shrink themselves for you. I think a lot of times women are told that they have to, shrink themselves down for, their partners who wouldn't are jealous, of their independence, jealous of where they're at in life, and are, should settle for scraps and never, ever, you know, shrink yourself for somebody that wouldn't shrink for you. If you like, the man that told me that he hated my independence and that's something that I should give up, that same man would never give up his independence, would never come off of his career track, for me. So why, should I do that for you? And as just, your goals, your dreams, your aspirations are important. You know, you don't have to give that up for somebody that would never ever change up their career path, their aspirations for you. You know, your culture, your identity, it is important. If somebody doesn't see you as you and the whole being, that's not somebody that's worth, you know, keeping in your space. Our partners that we pick are somebody that is going to navigate you through the hardest parts of your life, be it that giving birth,
Yeah.
navigating parenthood, taking you through grief. Um, they're going to be these pillars of support and strength that we're going to need in our hardest and darkest times. So when you are choosing a partner, be intentional because when you think of the sacrifices that you are willing to make for the one that you love, please consider if they are going to make those same sacrifices for you. Um, and again, center yourself in dating and not men. But
Yeah.
truly, but truly, you and your goals are a priority and they are important. And if somebody doesn't value that, then they just are not the one for you.
I definitely agree. And to actually touch back on some things you had said because it had sparked a memory when I was on Reddit, because I love Reddit. I was in the Black Ladies subreddit, and I think I had posted something. I can't remember. This guy, I believe he was Mexican, and he was dating a Black woman.
Mhm.
And of course, he doesn't know that like I'm mixed. So and I feel like past as just, South Asian. So I've had those kind of like experiences where I'm kind of like a chameleon. But he was saying to me, he had personally messaged me saying that like my expectations and standards were unrealistic, that I wasn't going to find this. And I felt like it was because he was he just thought I was like a Black woman, which I mean I am. I do identify as a Black woman, but like what you said, how about a guy saying, well, like you're not fitting the standard, or this is the best you're gonna get. Like, what? No, like I know what I can get because it has been offered to me before. So who are
Mhm.
you to say this to me? And I honestly do think it's because, being Black and stuff like that, because they wouldn't have so that I feel like to an Arab person, South Asian person, an Asian person, and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, and then, definitely don't settle for a man. Don't change who you are for a man because they aren't going to change for you. I mean, of course, you should always compromise in life, but don't be changing your life, your dynamics, who you are. Be you. Someone, like you told me, is going to accept you for you and love you for you. You don't have to change for anybody. There is a person who will accept who you are.
Yes. Also, just one quick interjection. Um, a lot of times there's a lot of narratives online that Black women, we have too high of standards or nobody's going to meet your standards. Like how dare you have standards, kind of like what you were talking about in the Reddit post. Um, your standards are just fine. Matter of fact, raise your standards because there is somebody out there that is going to not only meet the standards that you set, it's going to exceed them. Like if somebody is complaining that your standards are too high, then they're just not the person for you. Like nobody that is truly intentional about you and wanting to be with you will complain about the standards that you set, any boundaries that you set. They will be willing to meet you where you are and respect whatever boundaries that you have in place. Like, always raise your standards. Never let anybody tell you that you should ever settle for less because it's not worth it. It is not worth it. Like, always stay true to you and what you have set for yourself.
Yep, I agree. Well, thank you, Scientist Bay, for joining me today. This was such a needed conversation. I hope everyone you've enjoyed today's real talk because sometimes we don't have these conversations out loud in our communities. And before I sign off, let me give you a little teaser for next episode. I'll have another special guest with me, and we're going to dive into our experiences as mixed children in the Desi community. It's your girl, Zila Begum, and the mic is on.
To stay in her softness, she paves the way. With every word and every beat, she makes the quiet feel complete.